there's a lot to learn from these smaller publishers that actually are being forced to be innovative in different ways. The best strategies are ones that adapt to the reader. Anyone that's continuously innovating and testing new ideas is going to be leading the industry.
Welcome to the I Need Coffee and Better Ideas podcast, where we caffeinate your brain with the freshest takes in news media. Buckle up for 10 minutes of rapid-fire insights that'll shake up your content game and leave your audience wanting more. Today, I've got Madeline White. Madeline, how are you?
I'm good, thank you. So good to be here. I'm
glad to have you on. You know, we've known each other for a little bit, at least. I think I met you in Vienna last year at a conference at a Wanifa conference. We sat at a dinner together. Yeah. And since then, I've been really impressed by you and the team at Pool and the audiencers. I have to admit, I was actually reading the audiencers as if it was not a part of Pool before I met you, and completely was drawn in by an interview you did with Mark at Viafora.
Yeah.
And I was reading that as if that was just another, industry news outlet that I just hadn't discovered yet. And then I realized it later when I met you that, there's a connection between the two. So kudos to you for doing that. It's really good. And your contribution to the industry, I have to say, is invaluable. So thank you for doing what you guys do.
Thanks so much.
So, kicking it off on that note, I mean, I'm sure you have, your daily routines, and I'm probably, you have your coffee, but what makes your clock tick, and what is it that really drives you and your team?
Well, thank you so much for that intro. We've known each other for a while now, and I feel like we've done a tour of the world together doing all of these conferences.
Really have. Yeah.
I mean, the audiences, it's always hard to find that balance, I guess, between we want to be vaguely content marketing, but I think we're definitely not, and that would hold us back. And we didn't launch the audiences to do content marketing. It was more as a brand publication. And honestly, so it's Marion and myself who are behind the audiences. We're the two-man team. And what drives us is our relationship. We get on so well. So Marion is co-founder of Pool, and we co-founded the audiences together. And she started off as my boss at Pool when I was launching the blog, in charge of the marketing team. And we just get on so well. So Marion is French and I'm obviously English, as you can hear. And I feel like we're very complementary in our ideas and our thought processes and our ways of working. So right now, Marion is in charge of more of the business side, the audiences, and our events, whilst I'm more in charge of the content. So I'm kind of editor-in-chief, I guess, and in charge of what and who goes on stage at our events. And this kind of way of working just is so, it functions so well. And I think we're both very creative people, and our brainstorming sessions over a glass of wine in the evening have led to us running 7 festivals. Can I get invited to that
at some point?
This is a secret. It's a secret club. No. It's I feel like wine, these glasses of wine in the evening that we just brainstorm have led to some of the best things that have come from the audiences. So what makes us click is being able to work with each other, I guess. I think it's something that we're really lucky to have, and that's been incredibly valuable to the audiences.
It's funny you mentioned that, and I think going back to a quote I heard years and years ago is that culture eats strategy for breakfast every day.
Yes.
I think that what you just said really, really underscores that 100%. What surprised you the most when you've been speaking with someone in the industry?
I think when speaking to publishers, it's the diversity of strategies and the variety of levels of maturity, like the difference between two publishers. And I think that's almost been an issue with the industry for a long time, that a lot of focus or sharing best practices has been from the New York Times. And the New York Times is obviously incredible. They're a leader in the field. But their level of maturity and their reader revenue strategy is so far above and beyond what like the majority of the industry are doing, or where they're at, and their percentage of revenue from readers, that I just think that although we can be inspired by them, there's a lot of stuff that isn't really easily applicable to another publisher in a small region of France, for instance. And so the challenges that they're facing are completely different. So the variety of strategies out there and the ways of attacking these levels of maturity in the industry, I think that's what I've seen. I mean, there's some tiny publishers who are still really actually focused on print, and they're struggling to then move their readers from print to digital. And when you compare that to the New York Times, it's so far away from each other. Yeah. So that's, I guess, what we're trying to do at the audiences. And I think that a lot of increasingly more media online are sharing case studies from smaller publishers and people that are doing innovative strategies, even if they've only launched subscriptions a year ago. There's a lot to learn from these smaller publishers that actually are being forced to be innovative in different ways.
Yeah, they don't have the same sort of resources, right?
No, exactly.
And you know, they have to work in a completely different way. And speaking of that, and I'm sure you've written about these, but is there any of these cases that stand out as sort of your favorite? Like, this is the one where I'm like, oh wow, this is really impressive.
It's hard to say, because I think the best strategies are ones that adapt to the reader. So the experience that I have on their website might be different from what you have, for instance. So the best models definitely adapt to the reader, but it's those that are continuously testing and trying new things, whether that's looking at others on the market and kind of copying their strategies and testing that out on your own website, or trying something new. So like The Economist launching paid podcast, I think that's a really impressive strategy. And they're the first maybe ever to do that in the publishing world. And this is the kind of innovative strategy, innovative approach that we need in order to bring the publishing industry kind of ahead of trends rather than kind of trailing behind. So I love that The Economist has done that. They've also, I believe, launched registrations recently. So that's a way of trying to move less engaged readers through the funnel and increase their level of engagement through converting them to a known member. And whilst they might not subscribe today, by converting them into a member, you're gradually increasing that engagement, so then in maybe a year they'll subscribe, and they're seeing more of the value that's on offer for paying subscribers at The Economist. So I mean, that's a great strategy. I think anyone that's continuously innovating and testing new ideas is going to be leading the industry. Yeah,
that seems about fair. And I've been around for a while, and I remember when we were working, when I was at C-Sense, we were working with the Wall Street Journal, and they were launching their dynamic paywall. I forget exactly what year it was, 2016, 17, something like that. And, the level of personalization goals that they had going into that, and the propensity scoring, and they were really an early mover in that.
Yeah.
And I like what you say about, the paywall adapting to the reader. And I'm happy to see that, that kind of technology has become more available now to more publishers. It's not just for the big ones. It's for more than just, the Times or the Journal or the FT or whoever it may be. It's becoming more and more available, which hopefully will result in a higher level of subscriptions for more and more publishers, so that they can sustain the journalism that they want to produce.
Exactly. Yeah.
So switching gears a little bit, and again, going back to the topic of, conferences and a hot topic that we hear at every conference now is the build versus buy.
Yeah.
We heard the CEO of Bonnier, CEO of Schibsted, CEO of NZME. Numerous people have said buy over build lately. And of course, we're coming at this from one perspective, but it'd be great to hear sort of your perspective and what your thoughts are.
Yeah. So, I mean, obviously, I will admit that I'm biased being part of Pool. However, having spoken to so many publishers and really understanding the industry, I just think that publishers, their job, what they're selling is content, and that's what they're good at. And they're actually building a technology for each of the different specialities that they need, whether that's paywalls or, in your case, gamification or live blogging. They're not experts in that. And so without that expertise, how can they build a technology that's going to keep them ahead of the rest of the others in the industry and continue to develop? It's not just building it right now, it's continuing to build it tomorrow and next year when there's new developments, like all of these AI developments, for instance, it's not their priority and they're not experts in that. And so actually by buying, you're able to stay up to date with the trends. And you can be almost a quote unquote expert in every single area because you're working with the best in breed in each of those technologies for gamification, for live blogging, for paywalls.
Those conversations are going to keep being had.
And they need to be.
They need to be, for sure. I'm sure I haven't had my last conversation about this with someone either from your perspective or the other perspective. Mm-hmm. There are companies who have the size and the bandwidth and the resources to build a lot of stuff, but at the same time, it feels, at least from an innovation point of view, that not sourcing from the industry seems at least a bit counterintuitive to me.
Yeah, and I mean, you look at, obviously publishers have done it and have succeeded in doing it because, for instance, you think of Sophie that came from the Globe and Mail and ARC that came from the Washington Post. And actually that just proves our point because they were developed in-house, but they've become external companies in order to be the best in their field. And I think that just proves the point. I mean, you can build something in-house, but if it's not being built for that certain purpose by experts with that certain purpose in mind, I just think that you're always going to be one step behind.
Another topic from the conference world over the last 12 months or so. What are some of the cool AI use cases that you've seen over the last period of time?
Yeah, I mean, AI is definitely going to transform our way of consuming and producing content. But I really love all of these innovative kind of fun takes on AI. So I remember at OneIFRA, I think it was Schibsted that presented how they're using an AI bot to help answer questions on the EU elections. And they also did another one for rate your Christmas tree. So people could send in photos of their Christmas tree and an AI bot would rate it. And I just think that's really fun and engaging and a different way of using AI that's not just about reducing the amount of time to produce content. It's really innovative and fun and engaging and something that not only we can play with as publishers, but our audience can play with. But on the subject of AI, I always like to remind ourselves that actually humans connect with humans, and the power of community for publishers right now is incredible, and it will continue to be so in the future. I mean, content is a commodity. We can find it anywhere, and increasingly so with AI. So actually there's great power in having a community and building a community that readers will come to and continue to come back to in the future and connect with other humans who all share this sense of belonging with your publication.
I agree. And I think the points that were brought up by the Telegraph and Times at your event last week in London was really interesting. There are plenty of publishers who also have, let's say, put one toe in the water on that. But I think to your point, building that community sense with your audience is going to be increasingly important going forward. But yeah, I mean, thank you so much for coming to our podcast, Madeline.
Pleasure to be one of the first invited.
Oh, of course. I mean,
feel honored.
We're making the short list of people. And of course, Madeline White was pretty high up on that list. I mean, you've become somewhat of an industry celebrity over the last year. So, before we round off, I have one last question. How many coffees do you have a day?
Well, this is a dangerous question because I live in France. I've definitely got to at least 3 a day. That's my daily amount. And but I do love coffee. I worked in coffee shops for ages, like Costa and then independent ones when I was younger. And I love making coffee and I love a good coffee.
Thank you so much, Madeline. And looking forward to seeing you again. All right.
Thank you so much.